After so long making short hops in the Caribbean, it is time for us to stretch our sea legs, with a 4-day offshore passage to our final country in the Caribbean. It wasn't all plain sailing though, with rolling seas bringing seasickness, and a narrow, shallow reef passage requiring some careful eyeball navigation on arrival.
We are Amy and Matt. We spent the last 6.5 years sailing our 37-foot sailboat Florence around the world. In that time, we have crossed 4 oceans and over 46,000 miles have passed under our keel.
Now we have made it back to the Caribbean, we will explore these famous islands before we recross the North Atlantic Ocean to return to where we began this voyage in England.
We have been in the British Virgin Islands for just over 3 weeks, and the time has flown by. Hurricane season is now fast approaching, but we want to squeeze in exploring just one more country before we point Florence east to recross the Atlantic Ocean. But before we can head out to sea and sail on to our final Caribbean country, we need to top up Florence's tanks, find some fresh provisions, and check out of the BVI.
We are getting Florence ready to leave the British Virgin Islands and sail on to the Bahamas. It's been a brilliant time here in the British Virgin Islands, but we're also really excited to sail on to the Bahamas because you hear so much about that place from all the other cruises. It's going to be about 550 miles from here, so we're just stocking Florence up with water and fuel, and earlier we went and checked out and got a last minute provisioning run in. Good luck! See you in a bit. So we've got to check out and get the last minute provisions. So we split tasks. Amy's going to go to the shop and see if there's any fresh provisions available, and I'm going to make my way to check out. And that was a convenient point to get off the boat, we hope. Well, that was pretty easy and cheap. Just 40 minutes of form filling, we're away.
Well, Matt's gone to check out. I've come here to the supermarket and I'm trying to get some provisions before we leave. But the prices in BVI are so high that my challenge is to leave this shop with more than just a loaf of bread and some bananas, because it's hard to justify paying these prices. This is the biggest supermarket in the BVI and it is certainly well stocked. Luckily, Florence is still really well stocked from the big provision that we did in the French islands and Martinique. So luckily, I just need a few fresh things here today.
We're actually leaving the British Virgin Islands about a week sooner than we would really like to be, and that's because of the weather. It's actually a really good weather window now, and we're worried that if we wait another week, which is when our visas run out, that actually there won't be a good weather window then. So the weather is purely dictating when we move, as normal, and it actually looks really nice. It looks like it's going to be about 15 to 20 knots downwind, and it should take us about 4 days to get there. Although we're actually going to be sailing out offshore in the Atlantic Ocean, the route to the Bahamas takes us very close to the coast of the Dominican Republic, which means we have a couple of spots there that we've identified as bailout ports in case we have a problem en route. And it's been a long time since we had the option of bailout ports along the way on a 4-day passage. And there's also quite a few shallow spots and reefs that we need to avoid, and that's actually why we're going to be a little bit closer to the coast there, because slightly further offshore there's a series of banks that have shallow spots and rocks on them that we really need to avoid. Well, that's us full of water, diesel, and we even topped up the petrol for the engine. It's super easy to just come alongside the dock and do all of that here in the Caribbean. In fact, the last time we had to jerry can water or fuel was St Helena in the middle of the South Atlantic. But we're not sure how easy it's going to be in the Bahamas, so it's important to be fully topped up just in case.
With Florence all topped up, we could cast off the lines, turn our bow west and head for the Bahamas.
To start with, we are sailing in the lee of the islands here, which are protecting us from the open ocean swells of the North Atlantic. But we know that once we leave them in our wake, life will become more challenging on board, as the swell is forecast to be beam on to Florence for the first day or so, meaning we'll be rolling a lot.
We left in a bit of a hurry, so I didn't have any chance to prepare any meals. But luckily I picked up a rotisserie chicken, so dinner's a little bit easier than it would normally be this evening.
Big wave. Oh, gravy as well, thank you very much. As is often the case with ocean sailing, the days and watches all roll into one over the first couple of days. Watch after watch of sailing in a straight line, all day and all night. Watching the ocean swells as they rise up under Florence's stern and roll her on her way toward the Bahamas.
The waves may look beautiful, but they gave Florence an unusual corkscrew motion, which really disagreed with me, leaving me the most seasick I've been since 2017. I struggled to even keep water down. Matt covered some of my watches, and that left both of us too tired to pick up a camera for a couple of days.
The third day of our sail from BVI. As normal, for the first couple of days we're both incredibly tired. In fact, this time Amy was actually really seasick for 24 hours, so she was pretty much wiped out. Managed to do some of her watches still, but not very nice. She doesn't normally get affected by it that much, normally just a little bit, but maybe it's because we haven't been crossing oceans for so long, because we've been in the Caribbean. After 3 days we tend to get used to the motion, we both tend to get used to the lack of sleep and start to feel a bit better and start enjoying the sailing. And today is absolutely glorious sailing. Downwind, one reef in the main, poled out, and Florence is going like a train. Not actually going exactly the way we want to go though, because we really want to go a slightly higher angle, slightly closer to the wind. But it's what we call the unsailable angle on Florence, because we don't really have a sail that fits there other than the spinnaker. And right now it's a little bit too windy to sail with the spinnaker. So
Instead of going directly towards where we're wanting to go, we're having to sail a slightly lower angle with the pole out, and then we'll round up and sail a slightly higher angle with the genoa on this side. If we try to do the angle in between, then the genoa just gets blanketed by the mainsail and flaps around and makes a lot of noise, stops us sleeping, not good for the boat. Yeah, so that's why we call it the unsailable angle, because it's just an angle where the genoa gets hidden behind the mainsail, and it's just not a very comfortable angle to sail. So we do, instead of going direct there on that angle, we'll do two legs, one lower with the pole out like this, which Florence absolutely loves because it spreads lots of sail area to the wind and makes it really easy for the wind vane sail steering to steer, because we're really balanced with one sail out either side. And then what we'll do is take the pole down, put the genoa back on the port side, but then round up so we've got enough wind coming around the front of the mast, front of the mainsail to get to that genoa and fill it. We even caught a fish just now, but
Barracuda with big teeth. Pardon? Can't eat it?
No, can't eat them here.
Okay.
Very vegetarian.
So this one's going back, but he's got big teeth. Oh, you're on slippery. Keep your teeth away from me.
it was a barracuda, and we know there's ciguatera around in this area. I'm not sure if that's a problem with fish you catch far from the reef, but ciguatera is a toxin, and it can build up in your bloodstream, build up in your body over time, and can make you really ill. And barracuda are known to be bad for it because they eat lots of fish that have this toxin in them, so it builds up in the barracuda, and then if you eat the barracuda, it builds up in you. We have been in areas like Seychelles where it was safe to eat the barracuda and they tasted delicious, but this one we didn't want to risk it, so we actually put it back, we put the line out, and hopefully we'll catch something else for dinner. Got another fish, but I think it's another barracuda, so might just have to let it go again. That was a big wave. Where's the fish gone? There he is. Oh.
Well done.
I know you're not supposed to throw them in, but when they've got big teeth like that, you don't want to hold them for any longer than you need to. I'm sure he'll be alright, he has plenty of life left in him.
Omelette for dinner, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we've had much luck with fish today, so it'll be a fish-free meal. Oh well. So here is Mayagana Island, our first stop in the Bahamas, but there's a reef entrance to get in. It's going to be only about 2.4 or 2.7 meters deep. So I think what we're going to do is drop the sails and go in under engine so that if it gets too shallow we can slam the engine in reverse, which is a lot easier to do with the engine than it is with the sails.
Although we are both a little bit nervous about the depth, we have the chart, we have a pilot guide, the satellite images for here, and also polarized sunglasses to help with the eyeball navigation, so it should hopefully all be okay.
It's been a while since we went into a narrow reef pass like this.
Yeah, it's not so much the reef that makes me nervous, it's the depth. It's like kind of between 2.5 to 1.5 meters, and at that sort of depth it's quite difficult to tell those little adjustments in depth just by eye, so we're just going to take it really slowly, I think. So clear, this is 10 meters of water. I'm not sure how much you can see on here, but this reef here is called middle reef, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So there's a tiny gap just here, and that's the section that you can hopefully see is like a clearer turquoise blue, and that's the pass that we're going through. It's not so much a pass, just a narrow strip of reef which is slightly deeper than the surroundings. That's 3.5 meters of water. So clear, it feels so sketchy. I just saw a starfish.
Okay, hard to starboard. 2.7 meters here.
Matt calls out the depths from the helm, while I try to visually navigate us around any coral bommies sticking up from the sea floor.
2.6. 2.2.
That's a really sleepy island, and this is supposed to be where we should be able to get a SIM card, and also it's supposed to be the tourist office for the island. So hopefully we could find out where customs and immigration are to check in, but unfortunately it's closed. And apart from a couple of people fishing down by the dock, we haven't really seen anybody so far. So I guess we'll wander on and see if we can find anyone to check in with. So on the door we have our opening times. We also have Christmas decorations and a sign that is from, well, 3/4 of a year ago. So maybe things take a while around here. I think it's probably going to be island time. No one here either. There's no one at all. Anywhere. Maybe he's gone somewhere.
Party on another island.
Well, I think that's a failed mission. We did find the Customs and Immigration Office, and we found the Customs and Immigration Officer, and we were told that no, we can't check in because the port is closed, and we
Until further notice.
Yeah, until further notice. So that was one thing. And as for the SIM card?
Yeah, that was also a fail. Apparently that office is also closed until further notice, but at least we got to stretch our legs and spend a little bit of time ashore and see a little bit of the island. Everybody's really friendly here, but it is so laid back. It's, I think, just one of those things that's going to ease us into the slow Bahamian way of life.
We were chatting with one of the policemen who was fishing on the dock here, and he told us that Mayaguana is suffering from a decline in population, down from around 400 now to just 200 people, which explains why they might be struggling to keep the offices open. So we haven't been able to check in here, and That's not great, but we're not too worried about it because to come to the Bahamas we actually had to do an online pre-clearance. So we've actually filled in all of our passport details and given them all the information about Florence already, and we've also applied for, paid for and received our cruising permit for the Bahamas. So we're just going to have to sail on and try and check in at the next place that we find that is actually open.
In the meantime, we are here in the Bahamas and the water is ridiculously clear. So we're going to jump in and see what that reef looks like.
For any boats following us, although Mayaguana is listed as a check-in port option on the drop-down list for the current online clearance form, we have since been told that this is a mistake and there is no intention to reopen this port for check-in. Apparently they get lots of boats trying to check in here, and apparently they're now going to get the form changed, but we're not sure how long that will take. We had no problem checking in further up the Bahamas at Long Island.
Whilst we were snorkeling, those barracuda snuck up behind us. Perhaps to get their revenge for our fishing escapade on the sail here.
If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss an episode, and that's absolutely free. We are usually a couple of months ahead of the videos in real time, and that means that whilst you've been watching this video, we should be out at sea starting our voyage back across the Atlantic Ocean. If you'd like to see where we are in real time, then please head over to Patreon and join the crew, as there we have a tracker map where you can track us across the ocean, and we also post daily text updates from on board.
Nice!
Oh yeah!
Yes!
As always, we want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supports the making of these videos, and especially our star patrons.